Can hear it okay?
You both should be able to hear it there.
All right.
Did you show them the pictures yet?
I gave them to Aunt Robin, but
Okay, good. We didn't want to forget those.
Yes, I'm so excited. Oh, these are great pictures.
Well, this is out of all these years, this is the first time I've been interviewed for anything.
good. Really?
Ever?
All right.
Ever.
Wow.
I love
That's shocking with your-
20
I feel like maybe as a pastor or something you would have been in.
My gift level has always been taking a little tiny church of just about nothing, then bringing it up to around 100, and then moving on and getting another little church.
Oh,
That was wonderful for me and my wife. It was hard for all my kids, for your dad and for Rick and for Robin, because you don't get a chance to make friends.
around.
Like
Yeah.
it's wonderful to be able to go through grade school and junior high and high school with all the same people.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize, I never even gave it any thought. And that was probably selfish, but yet I was still following my calling,
Mm-hmm.
and my wife was kind enough to follow me.
How many times did you guys move?
Oh,
Like when the kids were in high school and stuff.
In high school?
High school,
Bob and
it
Rick
was-
were already gone. I thought we moved like every 2.5 years.
probably until my last, when we got to Atwater, then I had staying power, and I was there for about 10 years, a little over 9. And then we moved to Sumner, Washington, and I was there for a little over 9. And then I went to Las Vegas and ran into the first coup I ever ran into in my life. And rather than split the church, I just decided, well, I'm getting older. I'll just retire. I'll just leave. So I left, and
Huh.
at least the guy that caused the coup didn't get the church either. So he's a great. I'd like to see him again. He was really a great young man, but he went about it wrong.
Mm.
Anyway, that was that. And then after I retired up here, we went to had a call to come down here to Sumner to help this church in Camas for 16 months while the pastor was in Iraq. He was a chaplain. And then when we came back, his group went to New Orleans after the dam broke and everything down there and flooded New Orleans. And so I stayed in the church all that time. And then he came back, and I saw that he was going, he didn't like the old, well, that's the truth, because he didn't really care for old people. And he was doing a wonderful job. He was doing a wonderful job reaching his age group and the people that you have to reach if you're going to continue to grow a church. If you just stay with the older crowd, and of course, most pastors, and it might be true in business, I don't know, but if you're a salesman or if you're a pastor, you really reach people 10 to 20 years, both sides of your age. That's where your most influence is going to be, And it's the same way in the church. And so, when you get older, I mean, it's like right now, I don't get used for anything, but I understand why. 20 years younger than me, still past retirement.
Yeah.
20 years older than me, they're all dead.
Mhm.
So, so that's the reason it has to keep moving on with the younger generation. And there was times in my life I didn't like that, but I don't know what that selfishness maybe, I don't know. You want to always be used. So it's like, you hate to think that one of these days you're going to get fired from the job that you're giving your soul for. So you'll feel the same thing in business someday.
I just watched this documentary about longevity in different countries and elderly people and people who are older. And in other countries, they have this thing where older people are needed every single, there's never that point where you just said, I don't feel like I'm needed anymore.
Mhm.
I just feel like you have so much wisdom to give, and you do have so much still to give. I just kind of, I don't know, I disagree.
It's
Well-
different, right?
It is different. I agree with what you're saying about connecting with people on a broad,
Mhm.
level, and being in the church and speaking to people.
Well, I noticed in Mexico, we Joanne and I go to Cabo every once in a while, and we go down to basically the main grocery store in the whole city, supermarket. And I noticed it was people that were old and retired that were bagging the groceries. And people give them a few pesos, and if the American went through, they might give them a couple bucks. That was probably a great day when an American came through and tipped them. And but then it was only after that that I realized that they don't have Social Security for the old folks that retire down there, so they probably never retire. They have to do something until they die.
Or the communities, right? Take care of them. The families are connected in the families. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, this documentary is like you just never retired because there wasn't it's a small town, village, Social Security. You're always needed to do something.
Yeah.
Provide for your community. But I still think you do need to provide for your community.
Make sure we're going.
Well,
Yeah, we're going.
Like even you talking to us and like sharing your wisdom and stuff, it's like you are contributing.
thank you.
And I don't know.
But you guys are asking the questions.
But I think I don't know. I think you have a lot to say.
Well, and I feel like that the old people, like Joanne and I, we have a lot to learn from you guys, from people your age and Robin's age. Because after all, that's the world that we live in today. And it's nice to know how to get through it.
Well, we have to learn from you so we can know how to move forward.
Well, that's that's what they say in the church. That they say that, and I think most people mean it, but I'm not sure.
I think
All the way across the board. It could be. You're right, and it moves quick. It moves quicker for you guys in your world than it did for us, because it was like your grandma. I imagine her world went pretty slow for a while, but like we were in a Bible class last night talking over in the book of Exodus, and somebody said, well, people don't really understand. And I said, hey, everybody around this table, all gray-haired people, definitely understand what it's like to be old and how quick time flies, because I remember when I was young, I couldn't wait till I was 16. Then I couldn't wait till I was 21, right?
Waiting for the next thing.
And women didn't want to get to 30, right? If it happened anyway. And now, boom, it's gone. That's what the guy across from me said last night. He says, yeah, I was a kid that long ago. So enjoy your life now while you have a chance.
I am. Yeah, we definitely
Your dad used to say, Dad, they've got it all screwed up. It's wrong in the world today. I said, what's that, Bob? He said, people should have to be able to enjoy their life and have fun until they get really old and can't enjoy it anymore, and then work the rest of their life till they die. I said,
Work
that
when
would be
you're
nice
old,
if it
yeah.
worked that way.
That would be nice.
What?
What do you thinking about that? It's like, what do you?
Hey, excuse me. This is my interview.
I know.
Calm
Sorry,
down.
I'm going to
You're
interview.
doing so good.
Thanks. I want to take it back to the beginning, if we could. If you talk a little bit about where you were born and your parents.
Yeah, I was born in Bozeman, Montana, which was right out of, about 12 miles from Gallatin Gateway. And Gallatin Gateway was known as the gateway to the west. That's the reason they named it Gallatin Gateway. But before that, it was called Salesville. And in fact, right now, every time I go back there, I like to go to, in fact, I'd like to be buried, to have my ashes or something put in that place. I haven't talked to my family about that yet.
It's on record now.
But it's on record now. Play it to them someday. Anyway, it was called Salesville, and my dad, who was my real father, I went back to Montana years later and did his funeral, and then I've done my half brother's. I didn't get to do his funeral, but I've got to do his mother's funeral. She died around close to 90 years of age from Alzheimer's. And but anyway, so let's go back to the birth. I was born in 1937 in Bozeman, Montana. And my granddad, which was like I'm your grandpa, my granddad name was Berg Clark, and he was the transportation manager of the Yellowstone National Park until cars came in. He was a stagecoach man. In fact, he came out from South Carolina driving a a wagon. He got tired of the hot weather in the South and decided he was going to move to Montana. He always had jobs because he was good at handling men and handling horses, and that's what he did. When he left doing the stagecoach in the Yellowstone National Park, they put him in charge of going out to speaking to service clubs all over the country and doing the old films, that they used to do of the park. And he promoted the Yellowstone Park. My mother's name was Bergen. She spent 16 years of her life in Children's Hospital because she was born without a socket in one hip. And always had one leg that was shorter than the other. This is after she was able to get around. Naturally, she had me.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand, Grandpa ran my dad off. That was the stagecoach driver, ran off the cowboy. And so my real dad, who raised me, and I told my half brothers after Dad died, the only thing that I was upset about was the fact I didn't get to be raised in Montana and become a cowboy like all the rest of them were. They were all, that was their way of life. He was foreman on what they called the Flying D Cattle Ranch, which was also owned, before it became the Flying D, it was owned by the King Ranch in Texas. And at that time, it was the largest ranch in America.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that one.
And he spent his whole life there. He went off and fought in World War II. And then came back and went right back on the ranch as a foreman on the ranch. And he was quite a guy. He had his bad habits were he loved to drink and fight. And he'd go into the bar in Gallatin Gateway. And when he was off, when he got his weekend at the ranch, he'd come down and say, "I'll buy the drinks tonight for the man that go with me." And
God, that's so bad.
After years and years and years, I'd been pastoring for several years, and I asked him. I talked to him one time, and he says, "Well, son, I've got to tell you, I quit drinking." Or no, I quit fighting. I said, "Why'd you quit fighting, Dad?" He says, "I got to where I had to buy too many drinks." But he didn't fight because he was mad. They just fought because it was like you played football and I played football. It was a sport. It was a way of living.
Respect, though.
And when it wasn't fighting, it was breaking horses and running men and crews and working on the ranch. Let's see. I don't know. Ask me any other questions.
Cool. Yeah, that was good. I mean, so born in Bozeman, and then where'd you move to?
My folks, when Grandpa ran off Dad, Mom married a guy by the name of Lindy Sales, and that's where the Sales name came in. As a sidebar to that, I have thought for many years I would like to change my name back to Spring, because the Sales have done nothing except a name.
Yeah,
that's the only thing it's ever been as a name. In fact, my sister on the Sales side, of which I wasn't raised with, we used to call her the pretty sister. She married a guy that graduated from Oregon State in a forestry degree. Maybe it was, I don't know whether it was the ducks or the beavers. He had a forestry degree, and he went to the mountains in Oregon, and within 3 years' time, bosses kept, some people can die at the wrong time or the right time, right? Well, they died at the right time for him, and he ended up in the state capitol. Well, the last time we tried to go through to Southern California, tried to contact him, was years back. Grandma and I, Joanne and I went. I call her Grandma now. That's because she's an old person and I'm an old person. And I couldn't even get a hold of her to talk to her. She didn't want to talk, So I've thought many times about the Sales name. I had an uncle who actually promised to pay my way through college. My mother had asked him, Reno, would appreciate it. Whatever. He was the highest paid mining engineer in the world. In fact, he built a when he after he died, he built a wing on the hospital at Bozeman. And of course, I'll never know whether it was his fault or my fault for getting her pregnant in high school and giving up but I had a scholarship to UCLA and football scholarship, and I that went bye-bye. It didn't have to go bye-bye. I found, later found out, guys were married and went to school and
had kids,
had babies and everything,
absolutely, right?
But, I thought, you just marry a girl and you go to work. And that shows how stupid I really was. I'm not marrying the girl, but realized I gave up on my dream, that part of my dream. Anyway, let's see. You asked me. I get sidetracked a lot.
No, that was good.
That's the reason
you
I had
answered
to
it
quit
all.
preaching.
That's all I want. That's the whole. I don't want it to be me talking. I'm trying to engage, get you to be talking about.
Well,
it.
you're doing a good job.
However,
I've never thought
whichever
about
you
things before.
It's not. I don't. It's not about me talking.
Yes, Spring. That's interesting. Remind me of your dad's first name. It was a unique name.
My dad,
Yes.
Sam,
No,
was my real dad, Sam.
Sam.
Yeah, and my dad that raised me was called Lindy. And he was a good man. I was only 6 months old when Mom went off with him. And of course, then I've talked to Sam's wife for later years. And she said, well, Dickie, you said that your grandpa ran off your dad. And she says, but I'm here to tell you, and I thought this was a rotten thing to tell me, but she says, I'm here to tell you that your mom was shacking up with Lindy, and that's the reason that they went off together. So I'll never know the truth. I prefer to believe that Grandpa just ran him off.
Right.
Yep.
Totally.
But anyway, he was a good man, and he raised me well. I remember one time when kids go through I don't know if it ever happened to you guys, but it went through the smoking stage, and I was out, behind the barn and smoking a cigarette, and he caught me. And he said, Dick, I don't want you to sneak. He said, there's nothing I hate worse than a sneaker.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, if you want to smoke, I'll buy your cigarettes. Yeah, wow, Dad. You will? He says, yeah, I'll buy your cigarettes, but I got to tell you something first. What's that, Dad? Athletes don't smoke. You're going to have to make up your choice. You want to play ball or you want to smoke cigarettes? Oh, Dad, I don't want to smoke cigarettes anymore. I'm through with that. I want to play ball. Anyway, he led me along things like that, and included coaching our baseball team, the summer leagues and everything like that. And he was a good coach. He knew a lot about baseball. And after let's see, we had a couple of kids come up from California and played on the in the summer baseball league that we had there in Phoenix, Oregon. And when my dad raised me, Lindy, when he committed suicide, he had
that part.
You probably didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I probably don't talk about that to people. And what happened was I got up to go to, back in those days, a kid could always work. Like during this, he ran an insurance office in Medford, in Phoenix, Oregon, and also put out the town newspaper, which went out once a week. And then he coached our team and everything. But I didn't know it. Well, I'll just tell you that I was able to work. In fact, during the summer times, we'd get up in the morning and go irrigate at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then we go out and go into the hay fields all day. And you either drive the tractor. On the good day, I got to drive, and otherwise, most of the days, I got to buck hay up onto the thing and up under the trailer. And then at 5 o'clock at night, you go back and irrigate again. So you were actually up from probably 4 in the morning until 7 or 8 at night. And then you get up and do the same thing again. That was back in the days when all kids could work, before all the labor laws came in, and they're going to protect the children. And so, anyway, Dad, I was working in a box, started to work in a box factory out at Central Point in Oregon after we moved to Medford. And I got up in the morning and asked Dad for a couple bucks for gasoline, and he yelled and screamed at me and told me, well, I was a selfish little bastard. You know, all I ever thought about was myself, and he threw the money at me, and I picked it up. And I thought, wow, he's never talked to me like that before. And I went out to the box factory, and they were closed. And being a kid, I said, okay, well, if the box factory's closed, I'm going to go play baseball. So the equipment was kept in the back of the insurance office in Phoenix. So I drove out to Phoenix, and the insurance office was closed. And so I drove back to Medford to go home. And when I got there, I saw it looked like smoke coming out of the garage. And I went over to open the garage door and looked in, and he was sitting in the car. He'd committed suicide. He'd taken his own life. And I remember I was just telling Robin the other day that I remember screaming, and didn't have telephones back then, cell phones back then. And I ran screaming all the way to the police department in Medford, telling them, come down, my dad, yada, yada. Anyway, boy, I tell you what.
How old were you?
I just finished my freshman year in high school in Phoenix. And so these two boys I was telling you about had played on our team for two summers. And they went back to Glendale because they were from down there, and they told the football coach, hey, coach, there's a young guy up in Oregon. They didn't know my dad had died, but they'd been telling the coach, there's a young guy up in Oregon that is a pretty good ball player. You ought to look at him. And I thought to myself, years later, I thought to myself, man, I got recruited out of high school. And so after Dad died, Mom and I decided that we were going to go. We didn't know where we were going to go, and all of a sudden a call came in one day, and the guy talked to my mother and said, hey, Mrs. Sales, if you'll move to Glendale, California, I've got a job waiting for you at Alan Gwen Chevrolet. You can be the receptionist for him there. So
Wow.
that was where Mom went. And then I went to Glendale High, and my life changed, and it was wonderful. And then I met this nice young lady. I was in I'd taken geometry, and after I took, this is probably a side story, after I took it for 3 years, Mr. Bonaguidi told me, Dick, I'll give you a passing grade, but don't, you're never going to do geometry, forget it.
Yeah, just
And so then I was sitting in a basic math class one day, and that was my specialty, basic math, still is. And this pretty young lady came in with a pink polka dot sweater on and a blue skirt. And after she left the room, the coach said, Dick, there's a girl for you. She drives a Cadillac to school. Well, I found out that after I married her, the Cadillac didn't come with her. Anyway. See, I married, and I remember after we started going together, I kept telling her after that, hey, you ought to go out with me. I was kind of like your dad. I've watched the way he would deal with girls sometimes when he was young, and I think, Rick, you are stupid the way you talk to girls. He'd walk, as a sidebar, he'd walk up to the food truck that come up on every job site. And this real pretty little blonde girl was out there, the boss's daughter. And Rick was working with me, the dumb laborer. And he said, hey, baby, when are you going to go out with me?
Confidence.
I thought,
it.
Rick, you're never going to get anywhere with her.
Is that Rick or Bob?
That was Rick.
Oh.
No, that's right. It wasn't your dad. It was Rick. Anyway, and so I kept, after Grandma, hey, listen, you ought to break up with that guy. That guy ended up being a Presbyterian minister for 40, 50 years and ended up being a great artist like your grandma. And she ended up with me. Anyway, we after she finally broke up with him, I didn't ask her out, and so she asked her girlfriend, came over and talked to me and said, "Hey, you ever gonna ask her out?" Oh, yeah, and I did, and it's been that way ever since. Oh, she invited me after that. They invited me to dinner at their house. Well, her dad was $1 million round table insurance salesman in Southern California, in Los Angeles. He built a business there, and then he built another one back east earlier. And so he was making buku bucks, and they lived on Country Club Drive. That's the reason she drove the Cadillac to school. They lived on Country Club Drive, and one day she invited me over for dinner, and I thought, well, yeah, I'll go. That time I was living in a garage apartment behind somebody's average house in Montrose, California, and I was used to being bare, eating at the table with no shirt on, and I liked fried chicken and gravy that my mother used to make, and Mama used to say to me, "Dick, put a shirt on. You're gonna have an accident someday." And one day she spilled the gravy on me, bringing it to the table. From then on, I wore a shirt. But she invited me. I told you that story just to tell you that I came out of that atmosphere, and I walked into her atmosphere, and I walked in, and before dinner, I have to tell you the story. Her dad said, "Hey, son, come back here. I got something I want to show you." And so I followed him back in the back bedroom, and he opened up a top drawer and he pulled this sock out, and he shook the sock, and a pearl-handled, gold-plated pistol fell out on the bed. And he says, "Yeah, guess what?" He said, "That was given to me from the president of France when I was in France." And I'm holding it, and I'm thinking, wow, just like any kid to do. Ooh, look at this. In fact, that was the only, I told him in years later, that's the only thing I want, Dad. When you pass away, I want like to have that gun. And somebody ended up stealing it from him when he was praying for the sick. And so he told me that, and then I told him years later, after he showed me that gun, he told me, he shook it out of the sock, and I'm looking at it, and while I'm looking at it and thinking, wow, this is great. He says, "Yeah, and that's what I'm going to use on anybody that hurts my daughter."
You're just interested in the gun.
And so, okay, son, it's time to go eat. Let's go out and eat. And so I'm sitting at this table, and it's a lace tablecloth over a beautiful table. And I didn't even know what lace was. And then silver serving dishes. Wow. And the food they brought out, and the food was delicious. I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. We had, I think it was the leg of lamb that day, and so I started to eat that, and Joanne's mother came back in from the kitchen, and she brought this green jelly with her and set it on the table. And I thought, and they started passing it around, and people get some and put it on their meat. And I thought, oh, what kind of people is this that puts jelly on their meat? It spoiled the whole dinner for me. No, not really. It was a good dinner. And anyway, that's the way she was raised, and the other way is the way I was raised.
Were you 16?
Pardon?
Probably 16 or 17 at that time?
I was probably, because we got married the next year after that. And so that's pretty much it. I might as well tell you, we ran away and got married. Took time out from, I don't remember, it was a weekend. I showed up at her house, and I had on a pair of gray slacks and blue buck shoes and nice sport coat, and picked her up, and she was dressed in a nice kind of dress, and we told her mother we were going to the beach, So her mother said, "Man, you guys don't look like you're going to the beach. It looks like you're going to get married." And so, "Oh, no, we're not going to do that." And so we drove from Glendale, California to a little town in Arizona called Salome, Arizona, where she danced. it's crazy little town. And so we went in there, and by the time we got there, we'd gotten lost. I hope you remember this, honey. We'd gotten lost, and by the time we got there, she didn't really know if she wanted to marry me or not. She was hot and tired and lost. And so we went in, and the guy, typical, marry like Vegas style stuff. He said, well, you want to pay for the flowers? Oh, yeah, we want flowers, And he brought his wife in to be the witness, and he married us. Well, she was going to keep it a secret. And she was doing dishes one day, and her wedding ring fell out of her purse and rolled across the floor. And her mother said, or I don't know if it was mother or dad, I don't remember who it was, kind of said, she made you finally, what?
Wasn't it Connie?
Oh, I don't know, maybe it was Connie, but anyway, she told her that she'd gotten married. And so that's how the family found out we were married. And that was, you can't do that. That was August the 14th. 1954, and her dad said, you have to have a proper wedding. So he made arrangements with the Presbyterian pastor in their city, at the proper church. And in September the 11th, we always remember that date because that's when the Twin Towers went down. So in September the 11th, 1954, we got married officially.
Again, nice.
In the Presbyterian Church. Mm-hmm. And those are the pictures we have. But there's a little sidebar that might be interesting to you. We were visiting friends 40 years later in Phoenix, Arizona. And we drove up to Prescott, kind of going around the long way home. And I made a mistake of not stopping and eating because when the road we started to go on, I thought, well, I'll find a restaurant along the way, we'll stop and eat and everything will be okay. So she was getting pretty crabby. When she gets hungry, she gets kind of crabby once in a while. I mean, not anymore, but back in those days she did. And so all of a sudden we're driving and I looked up and here's this town. Salome, Arizona, and there's the big sign, Salome, Arizona, where she danced. And I thought, to the day, it was 40 years from the time we got married there. She was mad at me when we got married. She was mad at me 40 years later when we went through that town. I mean, I deserved it both times. But
you want to think someone danced there?
That's just the way they advertised the town. They had this sexy girl on the sign, Salome, Arizona, where she danced.
Yeah.
And I think the sign's still there, if I'm not mistaken.
Never been there.
The closest place to you guys that had.
That was the closest place. And I was always upset. Every class reunion, the 10th reunion, the 20th reunion, the 30th reunion, the 40th reunion, the 50th reunion. There was a couple in school that ran away and got married 1 month before we did. And as far as I know, they're still married and they beat us every year. I always wanted to get that award, being the one that was married the longest. Mm-hmm. Only time we ever got that award was when we'd go on cruises and they'd ask, how long you been married? True. We'd tell them and they'd,
Yeah, why did you guys want to run away and get married?
I don't know whether it was because she was pregnant or
No.
We wanted to get married. We wanted to be married, and
which wedding was your wedding, would you say? Would you count your elopement?
Oh, no, I'd say we celebrate September 11th.
Okay. Yeah, totally.
Because I remember the date. In fact, it's coming up in a few days. So we'll go out, we get to go out to dinner and you get to pick the spot. But you'll probably defer to our daughter now. So Robin gets what she wants now. Huh? I said Robin gets what she wants now, so you'll probably say, oh, wherever Robin wants to go.
She usually asks us that all the time. Well, where would you like to go? And ask Dad the same thing.
So, any other questions?
That was good. That's where I was going to ask about the wedding next. So that you brought me right there. Now we can talk about your children if you'd like, and raising them.
Yeah,
How
you guys
how that
were
was.
pregnant when you got married.
Yeah.
You had your first baby pretty quick.
Yeah, Rick, all of, one of the, you'll like it. All of the kids were born in the Glendale Sanitarium.
I always hated saying that.
Yeah, that's I hated that name too. The Sanitarium. It sounds like it's a crazy house.
Yeah.
But I do remember when Rick was born. I don't know. I don't know whether I had football practice the next day or whatever it was, but Joanne says, "I think it's time." Hi, sweetie. She says, "I think it's time." And I said, "Can you call Jim Corson and have him bring you?" So Jim came over and picked her up and drove her to the hospital down to the Glendale Sanitarium. And I got to thinking about that, after I woke up the next time. Well, what did I do? I should have taken my wife. And so I ran to the hospital and got there before Rick was born. Anyway, Rick was born in the Glendale Sanitarium, and then I think then we had a miscarriage, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mixed up on that, or no,
The timing of that.
and then that was Joanne named him Teddy. He was a perfectly formed baby, beautiful baby boy. But that was back in the days when people had Rh positive and Rh negative blood. Now I guess they just give you a shot, and it's not a problem at all anymore. But he couldn't take the blood transfusion, and he died. And so then your dad came along, born in the same hospital, the sanitarium. Of course, maybe it was a sanitarium because both those boys were kind of crazy in the things they did in life. But yeah, Bob was born. I remember by that time I was going to the hospital with her all the time when the babies were born. And that Bob was born, and I remember when they got to be, I don't remember, was it 5 or 6 years old? We lived down the country club drive was just, probably half a mile from the city municipal pool. And Rick took, being the firstborn, he got the Mr. What was that prize called? Mr. We've got a picture of it still.
Beautiful baby.
Yeah, I think he was the most beautiful child, and he did. He was a good-looking kid, and he knew it. And the next year, Bob got Mr. Muscles, and he knew it too. That's the way he always went around. And then a few years later, or what it was, 16 months later, I think Robin was born. And I'm so glad that she's still around, still here. So she never got a chance to go to the pool. I think we'd moved by the time that had happened. But we used to go to the park a lot, up in Glen Oaks Park. Yeah, we had a house. We had our apartment at 1121 North Glendale Avenue, and it was not too far from the municipal pool and Glendale College, and probably a mile from where she was raised in the country club drive. I never got to go to the country club. Her dad never invited me to the country club. When we got married before the kids were born, you'll laugh at this probably. We got it. What our wedding present was going to be was a day at the country club, at the athletic club down in Santa Monica, and a toaster, or we had another choice. And being practical, my wife chose a toaster, and the day at the athletic club. Well, so we went down to the athletic club on the ocean, And we were playing in the sand and in the surf and everything. And I wanted to go one way and she wanted to go another way. And I'll never forget it. There was an old fat man, probably a little lighter than I am now and less fat. But anyway, an old fat man sitting on the beach smoking a cigar in front of his club. And yeah, that's where it was, on the beach. And so Joanne wanted to go one way, and I said, no, let's go this way. And I reached out like that, and the strap on her suit, was dangling rather than around her neck tied. And when I pulled, I said, let's go this way. Her top just went. And that old man,
Yeah.
he nearly swallowed his cigar. And of course, you and I both got embarrassed and ran off.
Yeah. Didn't want to go to the club.
Didn't want to go to the club. That was it. Honey, it's time to go home. Anyway, really, I don't remember anything else about that club than that scene. Of course, that was back in the days when that was interesting.
So was your
Bigger deal.
mom, you said you moved and met her once you moved from Montana. Was she, you kind of refer to her parents as like your parents kind of? Was she around? Was your mom still around at that time?
My mom was still around, and I'm ashamed of the fact that I didn't pay as much attention to my mom as I should. Well, we were. Yeah, that's right. We were busy all the time. Worked at nights at the Carnation Company and went to school during the day and all those things. But anyway, my mom, it's like in today's world. I just told Robin the other day, I said, you could pick really anywhere you want to go, because she's always saying, I want to live by my kids. I want to live by my kids. In fact, if I had my way, I'd like to move up by my kids. And I told her, honey, if you remember correctly, no matter where the parents move, usually the kids will follow. Find a way, they get there somehow. I said, that happened with both your brothers, that happened with you. And so she still hasn't answered me. I still think she wants to go up by her son. And I want to go to Montana. No.
Yeah.
And
Cowboy
so that's
for
the reason,
the rest. Yeah,
that's the reason you got to make sure I get buried up there anyway,
Yep.
get my ashes, at least have them scattered up there in the graveyard.
I'll go up there.
Anyway, yeah, I'd still like to have even if we kept this house, I'd like to have a trailer up there.
Yeah, totally.
So I could go spend some time and get to know I don't really know my brother that well, but I'd like to really get to know my brother. It's kind of like
He's alive.
we're getting to know each other a lot better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's still a cowboy. He didn't work on the ranch anymore, but he, when you guys travel across the country, you see these big round irrigation systems.
Mm-hmm.
And every time you see that little wheel that goes around and around, there's always 20 acres usually of hay or some kind of a crop that grows there. Well, he sold those things. He had the franchise for Montana, Idaho, Colorado. And anyway, he's thinking about retiring, and he's still in the wintertime up there. He goes to Arizona all the time and rodeos.
Older or
So-
younger brother?
They're all younger than I
All
was.
younger?
I was in the 9th grade the first time I met them.
Is that so? Is
And they
your
were in the
half
5th grade.
Your half brother?
They're
then?
half brothers. Yeah.
Gotcha.
They're with, they're my dad's
Yep.
kids, like
Yep.
I was
Yep.
his kid.
Totally.
And, life gets kind of messed up like that, once in a while in our homes.
Yeah, half sibling. Yeah, that's good.
Absolutely. So it's definitely a choice how close we want to be,
That's right.
Totally a choice.
They're full siblings to you. You
Yeah,
totally
they
think
are.
of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about family a little bit now. What about I'd like to know if you had like a best friend in your life. Who would you say?
Well, I had two best friends. We were in high school together. We called ourselves the Three Musketeers. One of them's name was Mickey Crusoe, and he was a scrappy little guy. He was a center on the football team. He was light, he was smaller, but he played varsity ball all the time. And we'd go out and he'd mouth off to somebody, and the guy'd get mad at her, and Mickey jumped behind me. Come on. Anyway, kind of like they used to do with your dad. And the other one was, well, first I'll finish telling you about Mickey. Mickey went to Hollywood and became a stuntman. And
Seems fitting, yeah.
did real well as a stuntman, but he became, he got hooked on drugs. And my other best friend, the other musketeer, was Bill Pratt. He became Dr. Bill Pratt. And we just went to his funeral just a few, or the memorial service a few days ago. And Bill ended up being a dentist, but he was the kind of a dentist that closed his office down and take all of his help, Christian and non-Christian, with him. And they would go to Mongolia and Afghanistan and all of these places around the world and work on people's teeth. He always say, Dick, he said, it's amazing. He says, you go out there, he said, we would take as much medicine as we could take. And, but when you ran out of the medicine, they still would be standing in line because their mouths were hurting so bad that the pain of working on them was less than the pain they were having.
Yeah.
And so anyway, one time Bill and I sent Mickey a Bible, and we tried to work with him a bit. And one of our other friends at our 20th or 30th reunion offered him a job in San Francisco working as a deep sea diver and that welding underneath the piers out there. And Mickey would tell him, I remember him telling him just as plain as day, you know, that I appreciate the offer very much, but why would I do that when I can go out and do something on a stunt, and if I break my leg, I get paid for a year, you know. And that was Mickey's way. And I think that's the reason that he ended up on drugs. You know, probably the pain of all of the things that happened to him, and plus the nature of man, nature of the beast is fun over work anyway. So those were equal friends. And isn't it amazing all the different ways of life that all of us went, you know?
Seriously.
So anyway, those were my best friends.
Is he still alive, or did
Mickey died, and his drugs got him. He ended up committing suicide.
Okay. Yeah.
And Bill, his wife was a wonderful girl too, Peggy Wyman. Was another wealthy girl in Glendale. Bill's dad was an attorney. They all up in that end of town, all of them were rich people. You had to go farther up the mountain to find the poor people where I came from.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Anyway, so Peggy's folks were well-to-do too. Well, we found out. Bill called me one day. He said, Dick, we hadn't talked together for about a year. And I called Bill, and he told me that his wife Peggy was in a memory care home in Oregon. And he says, and by the way, he says, I'm starting to get Parkinson's. And so he was starting to get Parkinson's, so he sold his last place in Gig Harbor, and he moved down to be in the same center where his wife was, except she was in memory care up below, and he was down in another place. And she's still in memory care. Bill's gone now. And his son told me that a few weeks ago that they didn't tell her that Bill's gone yet. She says, she asked a question about Bill. Was Bill here? Oh, no. Something about Bill. I can't remember. And she said, oh, the boys told her, oh, Mom, no, you had dinner with him the other night. She said, oh, yeah, it must have been good and good. You know? So that's where they were. Anyway, I think I'm about. If you have any other questions, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It was just an open conversation. I appreciate it.
Good. And I appreciate you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you asking because it helped it helped me to remember some things, and those are all things that get
I've
lost
never heard.
along the
Yeah,
way and
I've
never.
I didn't know where the sales name came from. That's like
Yeah.
so interesting.
Yeah, you really should have been a spring.
I know, right? That's what I'm saying. I'm like so yeah.
So
Sale. I'm so
maybe
prideful
someday
of
you'll
my
want to do
sales
some
name.
of your work and go to Montana and get to know some of your
I
other
know.
side of the family.
Seriously, yeah.
Because you probably got, I know for sure you have a cousin up there that is a very successful contractor, and he likes rodeoing too. Everybody likes rodeo. His son is one of the top rodeo guys on a scholarship at Montana State College right now. And his second boy, who Joanne thought was a real brat last time we were up there, is just now getting ready to graduate from high school, and he'll probably go there too. And they're all skiers and all that stuff. So you would really enjoy that part of the family. They're good people. Maybe someday.
I don't have contact. I'll have to get their contact
Maybe,
information,
yeah.
right? I'm like, first time I've heard of them. Yeah.
I'll
I
give
don't
you the.
even have that.
Well, it's 105. No, yeah, it's 105
Good memory.
Mountain Avenue, Gallatin Gateway, Montana.
Good. It's on record now.
Anyway, yeah, they live. You turn off and you go to Gateway. If you're coming out of the park and come through Gateway, you get to the cemetery, Salesville Cemetery, and you make a right and go down to two First Street on the left and go down about a quarter of a mile, and it's the end of the road, little ranchette type thing, 20 acres.
That'd be so fun.
And you guys can work anywhere. No,
True. This is true.
at this moment, right?
Mhm.
So anyway,
Well, if I'm now done with my real questions, I guess more specific questions now would be more philosophical. I guess we could get more about if you had any advice for a 25, 26-year-old. The world today.
I think when I think about it in the world in which we live in today, I think that you guys are way ahead of where any of us three will ever be or ever go. Advice, I would say, and I know you're both on different wavelengths spiritually, probably, and I just believe, always have, that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And he says, no man comes to me except, or the Father says, no man comes to me except through Jesus. And I just believe that there's no other way. A lot of people believe, there's all kinds of ways to go. And I think the God of this world has turned out to be the God of self-reliance. I mean, I even noticed it back when the Twin Towers went down. President Bush said they didn't mention anything about prayer, God helping them to come back, raise up our country again, or anything like that. They always say now in a time of tragedy, starting with me remembering back, starting there and every other tragedy after that, including right up and through today, is don't worry, we're going to come back stronger than ever. Well, our country isn't stronger than ever. Our country's hated around the world. Anyway, that's just the way I kind of look at it. And I would advise is I don't want you to miss it. You've probably heard about Jesus. You've heard about how the world's gone. I believe personally that one of these days he's going to come and he's going to take the believers from all over the world. And there's going to be millions of them. The Bible said the dead in Christ will rise first, then we which are alive and remaining will be gathered together to meet him in the air. Now the world just laughs at that. But I take it very seriously. And I love everybody that I've ever met in the world, believers or non-believers. But I just hate to see people miss it, particularly family.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even saying that you are or you will, but you ask for advice.
Totally, yeah.
That's probably the only thing, because every other thing I think you could teach me. You could tell me a lot about. In fact, you already did last time we were here. If I ever did get my knife sharpening business going, that you'd market it.
Yep.
So you know more about all that stuff,
Yep.
marketing, and that. I wouldn't even dream about it. I'd just walk up and down the street and say, "Hey, can I sharpen one of your knives?
Mhm.
Show you how good we could do." And I guess the advice is just an old advice, you know. I tried talking to your dad, your uncle, and maybe the moving around so much. I always got an idea that, I got an idea that the boys oh. Excuse me. I got an idea that they really did respect and know about and believe in Jesus. But I think the thing that hurt them is I think they hated the church. I really think they did. And I'm sorry about that. And a lot of that's my fault, because when I was young, in my defense, I was a kid that was pastoring. I didn't even go to seminary, but I'd been in school off and on all my life, going to seminaries and going to classes, going to college. But I followed my dream and didn't take time to have fun with them. You know, you guys ever have kids, no matter what you do, make sure you do things with them. That's another advice. Make sure you do things with them. Make sure you make life fun for them too. And I don't think I did that. I was too busy to go camping. I went camping with your dad after he was gone, grown up. But I never did it when he was a kid. So, you know, and then you guys probably have thoughts about your own families when you're growing up, when I'm talking like this even. So everybody makes mistakes, but some mistakes are much more critical than others.
Do you think that they would not be able to differentiate? Because for me, I can the church also, for me, I've not had the best, church relationship in my life, but I am spiritual and I do appreciate those teachings. So like for you to feel guilty about you pushing that on them too much, it's like, okay, there's two separate lives, right? You're at home and then there's also your church life, right? So you, I assume, had those teachings. You taught your kids that at home, which was important, right? But then there's also the other side of it, which is the church, which is what it sounds like they maybe were not
Well,
that part of it.
the church is an overall influence on the home and everything.
Mm-hmm. Of course, yeah.
And that's the reason that a lot of people, once they, and of course, the Bible even today speaks about a great falling away, that the Lord won't be coming until there's a great falling away. Well, there's more people falling away today than ever any time in history. Our world was known, the United States of America, basically, everybody wasn't Christian, right? But our nation was known as a Christian nation right up until just a few years ago. And now there's less Christians in it, professing people, than ever before in the history of it. I don't know if that answers.
I would just want to think that your teachings at home would be enough to like for your values to be able to push, to be able to like influence them, even if they like resented the church specifically.
I'll take your uncle Rick. Uncle Rick got into all of this. Where they had all of the. Thank you.
Don't want you to step on them.
where he got into all of these. I'm trying to remember the name of the word. It was so popular a few years ago. People got into spiritual, all the New Age stuff and the spiritualism and all of that. He got into that, and I remember going over to his house one time and saying, we were having a barbecue over there, and I said, my back was really hurting. He says, come on down in the basement, Dad, I can heal you, and so he went down there and he was using all this New Age stuff, and so nothing really happened. And I remember another time, probably not too long after that, that I was over there and we were having another barbecue, and that's something too, that with your kids, make sure you always do things with them and their families and everything. And I didn't do that. I did more of that because Rick was inviting me to his house, and Bob, I remember going to Bend and he was inviting me to his house, and then every time Bob would come, your dad would come out here, he brought a coffee pot to his mother, and he'd always go for a walk with his mother, and because he knew I didn't like to walk, so Mom, let's go for a walk, and we'd walk around the lake down there with Grandma. But one of the other times I was in the basement with Rick, I got serious with him. I said, okay, Rick, what do you really think about all this New Age stuff that you're into? He was working in Kirkland, and all of these multi-millionaires were up there. He was working on their kind of places, the kind of condos that sold for over $1 million. And then he would always say, Dad, you can't believe the husbands would have to spend $200,000 and $300,000 remodeling a brand new condo before the wife would move into it, And he was raised around all that stuff. And some of those people he got to know up there were into New Age and were high muckety mucks in it. And I say muckety mucks because I don't know what they were in it. And I said, Rick, what do you really think about it? He said, oh, Dad, it's a bunch of crap. And Christy tells me that Rick was helping her study the Bible because she didn't know. This was kind of afterwards, and that gives me my hope in some of those things, because I hate to think that they missed it. So anyway, I don't know if any of those things answered your questions or not.
That conversation. Forget what my question was.
Well, you can listen to the phone. So anyway, I want you to know that I love you.
I love you
very,
too.
very much, both you guys. And I know you love me.
Good.
And
we've all wished we've done different things in life, of course. That's life.
That's right.
You can't go back.
You can't live it over.
Nope, and that's
Mhm.
why it's so great.
Mhm.
But it's also terrible.
All I care about is now, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, how are you? Like, I want to say, oh, you, like, you raised them well, but I wasn't alive. I have no idea, right? What you actually went through.
But your experience with your dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's like all I know is how I've known you my whole life, and like our relationship. So it's like I assume it was good.
Did you feel like with that camping trip I was talking about? I remember you crashing and burning in front of them.
I remember that.
Yeah. You remember that? I was going to ask you if you
Mhm.
remembered that.
I do.
Um,
Like one of my oldest memories, riding around that track, little motorcycle. I totally, yeah. First person, I remember that in my head.
did you were too young to get some of the, I remember that he liked truck driving. He really liked the river guide and
Mhm. Yeah,
you know, the bum life.
yeah,
He even called it that too.
definitely.
And but there came a time when he wanted to learn something that was the electrical,
Mhm.
and so that he could become more responsible as a father. And I just wondered if you ever realized that that's what he was trying to do. But I know you were awful young.
Maybe for me, I don't think it was the career change, but it was when he, like, I mean, I knew it, and my mom told me even that like he could have been somewhere else working driving trucks, but he wanted to be in Eugene, and that was the whole thing, was that he was going to marry Lori, but they were waiting until Savannah and I graduated high school because he wanted to be in my life. And so I knew that growing up.
Good.
And my mom made that very apparent. It's like, hey, he's putting in this effort to be in your life. But for me, it was like, I guess that he wasn't for a while when I was younger.
Oh, he wasn't.
But I don't remember from 6 months to 3 or 4 years
No.
old. I have zero memory. All I remember is that moment. It was
Crashing and burning.
when he was, part of my life and putting in that effort. So all I know is like that effort. And that's what I remember about him.
Good. Well, I'm glad that you do.
We think about him all the time, and think about you guys too, obviously, with that. And
And I'm glad that your mother told you what she told you. I really am. I'm surprised,
Always,
but
yeah.
I'm tickled to death that she did,
Mhm.
because she recognized the effort,
Yep.
even though they didn't get along.
And even after that, it's like, even then I was also told that they didn't get along.
They
But from my recollection, it's like once I was like, I always remember it was like, I don't remember, they had like, he had a situation with Lawrence where they were like not getting along. And then my mom said that my dad went up to him and was like, hey, something like, I just respect you for raising my kids, and we should do this as a team rather than like be on the different pages. And after that moment, it was cohesion.
It was
and like,
good.
yeah,
Well, I can
sneaking
understand
out to
why
me
Lawrence
sneaking
would
out,
have felt funny in the beginning,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
what did I get into here?
Yeah, you think? Forget about the 2
particularly
kids.
particularly with Bob, with
Yeah.
your dad, because he was very.
Forget that he had 2 kids already. Yeah,
Yeah.
just him in itself. Yeah, I get that.
And Bob didn't think anything about. He was more like my dad. He would have fought at the drop of a hat
Mhm.
at anybody. And I'd already told you the story about Rick, where he came by and picked me up, and we had to go to the bar
Mhm.
to try to rescue his brother. I remember that a lot.
Would he ever get into fights, or was he more just like he would be there if there was something?
I never saw him in a fight, but I heard about some stuff. That's all. I think he was
more in love.
Yeah.
He really was. He really was.
Tenderhearted,
What?
very. He and I would be the ones that would cry when animals or anything. It would be Bob and I.
Yeah.
He was very sensitive.
He was a great wrestler. your dad.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
I remember that.
And
Wrestled me. Yeah.
San Gorgonio High School in San Bernardino. He was going to school there, and he got jumped by a bunch of black guys from off the campus in the school. And he didn't get hurt. He just, he was a good wrestler. He just threw him off, and then got back and he went into the principal's office. And I'll never forget this. The principal said to him, "Bob, don't you ever do anything about that. If I hear that you went after any of those black boys, you're white. You know better. You didn't believe it? You're white. You know better. I'll expel you from school."
I thought it was more like you'd kill them if he, because he was
that's
so
what I
big.
was
Yeah.
thinking. Yeah.
And that's when I volunteered to go down to the school and just at lunchtime and become listen to the kids and talk to the kids and sit on the benches. And yeah, but I think that was back in the very beginning days of some of the black problem. I understand a lot of the black problems. I always have, but yeah, I know what's fair and what's not. On both sides.
Yeah, definitely.
You would go to his school and talk to kids, and
Yeah.
that's so cool.
That is.
I feel like that's needed in every school.
Well, and in some you can't. They won't let you in.
Yeah.
But I think because of
You
this,
can't do that
because of the
anymore.
situation, they were looking for people that would.
Would you?
And that was back before the police officers got to where they would have one on
Would you
campus.
say you did that like as a father or as like a?
Father?
Okay, yeah.
And of course, I understand how your dad grew up. He was pretty prejudiced.
Yeah.
He got it from me.
Yeah.
I mean, I was too. See, and I always thought I wasn't, but I guess I was. But I still, when it comes to reparations, I still, if somebody's telling me about this is all being recorded, oh boy. If somebody was, telling me, well, I deserve this, I deserve that, I would say my answer to them would be, you're not a slave, and I'm not a slave master.
Mhm.
If my grandpappy, the one I was telling you about, the stagecoach driver, if he had slaves and he didn't in the South, that still doesn't affect you today or me today.
Mhm.
So get a life. I mean, but that's just how I feel, and that's kind of the way I raised Bob. And but it's easy for young people to take things different,
Mhm.
Definitely.
So anyway,
I saw that side of him for sure. He was, a little bit
yeah.
more like that, but I don't know. I like to think if you were here now, 15 years later,
Yeah.
that people, can change and the world would be different because it's like hard to judge him based on the world at 2000, right? 2000 to 2005. Then
Well, I wouldn't have judged him then.
that's exactly, yeah.
No, I don't think anyone would have judged each other at that point.
That's what I'm
That-
saying.
that's-
Yeah,
Recently,
That's
that's
hard.
become
Yeah.
more
Yeah,
different.
that's right. Well, yeah. One of the reasons society's changed so much because of still all that stuff.
definitely.
Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Perfect.
Appreciate you being vulnerable.
Thank you. Appreciate you asking the questions.
I'm so happy.
It's important for me. Yeah, I'm
You have
like,
such a good memory.
Oh, thank you.
Remembering the road on Monday.
Yeah, I know.
What?
What?
It's all, I don't remember that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I guess all of our brains work different. I even remember the colors of her dress.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do.
And I never.
You don't even remember driving that Cadillac to school, do you? Oh, good. But you usually drove the Kaiser Fraser, didn't you? You didn't drive the Cadillac all the time.
No, and
where my family, where we were in the church.
Yep.
My mom, my dad, and it's just opposite.
They were good. They were good Presbyterians.
Yeah.
Oh, I was so bored at Presbyterian
It
church
sounds opposite.
back
You guys
then.
were raised
Back then.
different.
Yeah.
Very differently. Upbringing.
Yeah.
You guys were raised differently.
I never knew anything about the world.
Yep.
I,
Well, we didn't think about that stuff back there either.
Huh?
We didn't think about the world back then. Our world was what was important.
Well, now with the internet, you're constantly seeing the whole world.
That's
I
right.
can't even imagine. I wish it was that way sometimes, where because I'm so overwhelmed with the world. You know, like I wish I could just focus on my own world and be in my own world. Yeah, it's very interesting time.
That's right.
Constantly, you can be.
Robin told me the other day that Travis, your 7-year-old,
Oh, he's 9 now.
9-year-old grandson, can do all this stuff on the computer that she can't even do, and I think she's a whiz bang.
Yep.
Oh, I'm not a whiz bang.
No, but you
Oh,
are
I
compared
don't
to me.
even. The people that were born, I'd say 10 years after us, are even like way better off because I can do like stupid computer stuff, but not like write a code that's
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
like do anything.
My
And it's like,
daughter took my
to-
grandson to Apple, and they were going to teach about code.
mhm,
Oh, wow.
And I
kids,
thought, he's 8 years old. How do they do that?
could make a lot of money as a
Yes,
15-year-old if you
exactly.
start now. Yeah,
Good
your
Lord.
cousins are like super young and teaching code and like making so much money because
Wild.
that's the way to make money online
Is
for
it?
sure. Yeah, well, it's a great way.
Because he's not going to be able to do like where
Yep.
Rick, Bob, and I were
Yep.
more just physical stuff.
Yep,
Now,
totally.
Fred had- So and
Could do way
he
better
won't be able to
doing
do
that
because of
anyway.
the parts,
Yep.
So